HighBridge, a division of Recorded Books, presents This Life, a Novel, by Quntos Kunquest. Forward by Zachary Lazar. Read by Sean Crisden. Forward by Zachary Lazar. I have been friends with Quntos Kunquest for such a long time, almost 8 years now, that it's strange to look back to when we first met. It was in 2013 at Angola prison, where Quntos has been incarcerated since 1996. I had come there as a journalist to cover the rehearsals and production of a passion play, The Life of Jesus Christ, performed by the inmates, and Quntos was part of the sound crew. He also wrote some music for it. He was a rapper, he said, but Angola disapproved of hip-hop, unlike country, gospel, and rock, so he had to find ways to work that didn't draw much notice, teaching himself a little guitar, a little keyboard, enough to play into a digital recorder with programmable beats and sound loops that he could rap or sing over. He wanted to write stadium songs, he told me, songs for a huge crowd, which he likened to building an outfit around a pair of shoes or a necklace, a simple central concept as the focal point of a larger composition. He was tall, and everything he wore was white. White sweatpants, white hoodie, white New Balances. His sunglasses either on or down in front of his ears, so the lenses cupped his chin. He said he loved books, romance novels, don't tell no one, and history. He was weird, he said, an outsider, an artist, and he sometimes had trouble getting his message across. People would start to agree with him before they really considered what he was actually saying. They agreed to agree, not even thinking about what they were agreeing with. We started talking more about books. He had been reading Machiavelli, and he said that most people don't go deep with something like that. They just look for the main point, not the nuances or the development. And what you do small, you do large, he went on, meaning that people look at their whole lives and the lives of others with the same haste and shallowness. After I wrote my magazine piece, I mentioned to Quntos I was trying to write a novel about a man serving life at Angola, and he told me he had written a novel like that himself. He would send it to me, he said, and I could steal from it anything I wanted. I told him I wasn't going to steal anything, but I was interested in reading his book. It arrived in my mailbox almost 20 years into his sentence, in November of 2015. The manuscript carefully handwritten in ballpoint pen, which made it a work of visual as well as literary art. What I mean is that he transcribed for me, by hand, a copy of his 343-page novel. When he needed italics, which he used sparingly, he would switch from print to cursive. The story depicted an ensemble cast of characters enacting the power dynamics of prison, represented by rival crews of rappers. The action was interspersed with vivid set pieces describing daily life at Angola, written in many registers, from the African-American slang of the dialogue to the rich mix of formal and colloquial English of the narration. It was dramatic, elegant, and funny. Funny in a way only possible for someone who in real life has maintained his sense of humor and joie de vivre after more than 25 years in prison. After the first time I read it, I felt compelled to send it to my agent and my editor. It has been a long journey since then. I sent the book around for almost a year before I finally got an encouraging response from a publishing house owned by a famous rapper. They said they were interested in Quntos' novel, but they would need a typed manuscript. So I asked one of my students if he would be willing to type it, and he said yes. So then I sent in the typed version in September of 2016. And in mid-November, the rapper's press came back and made an offer, with money involved. We had to educate ourselves now about logistics. For example, would Quntos have to publish under a pseudonym? How would we manage the contract and the advance and the royalties? Were there other forms of jeopardy we weren't even foreseeing? I was concerned that the prison authorities would find ways to punish Quntos for publishing a book set at Angola, even if the publication was legal. I had learned that it was legal from a lawyer friend who did the research. It was a bad winter. Sometime in January, after a lot of back and forth about the book's title, about the difficulty of selling copies when the author couldn't make public appearances to promote it, the rapper's press stopped responding to me. A new president of the United States took office, the white nationalist who'd garnered more than 60 million votes. I wrote the rapper's press one last time that February. They withdrew their offer later that day. There's much more to the story, but in one sense at least the story has a happy ending. After all this time, Quntos' novel has found its proper home, Agate, where Doug Siebold had the eyes to see and the ears to hear. As the critic Jerry Saltz once said, art is for anyone. It's just not for everyone. Readers of this novel will not find what they expect, because any novel that is a work of art bears the imprint of its maker, and makers, because they are people, are singular. Knowing them takes time. Knowing them is surprising. This knowing and these surprises are what make art valuable, even in a time that casts doubt on the very idea of any value that is not monetary but spiritual. Quntos has been incarcerated since he was 19 for a $300 carjacking in which no one was physically injured. He is serving a life sentence for this one act. This life is a vivid portrayal of what the severity of a life sentence means. But that's not the reason you should read it. The title explains why you should read it. It is for the clarity and insight and enormous dignity with which Quntos Kunquest conjures the singular human lives in his story. The Intro. Chapter 1. The AU steps into the dormitory, bewildered, uncertain, a strange sense of walking outside of himself. He keyed into everything around him. The air so thick it presses against his skin. The dull, almost spooky glow from the lighting overhead is dingy yellow. It can't even push away the shadows that hang in the deepest crevices and corners. Got him feeling shook. Been like that since the turnkey slammed the door, locking him inside. So much done already happened. He just numb to it, all this shit. His trial, conviction, and sentence. The time he already gave up sitting in the Paris jail. The hundreds of miles riding in shackles and chains in the back of a sheriff's van. The windows tinted and covered with some shit like chicken wire. Guarded by whack-ass correctional officers puffing cigarettes and blowing on stained coffee cups. Bad jokes and shaky laughs like he ain't know. If anything unusual happened, they wouldn't have hesitated to shoot. That trip triggered something he wasn't trying to think about, but he knew. This was his slow descent to the bottom of the barrel. All of it got him even more numb now where he stands. The numbness like ain't nothing there. He looks around, without feeling, at his new surroundings. He is an admitting unit, an AU. There's a bunch of fans blowing all around. Everywhere he look, he see convicts. Old heads, youngsters, mostly black, a few white dudes. Most of them wear either gray cotton joggers, jeans or blue jeans shorts, and tank top tees or color t-shirts. Different dudes walk past the new jack with their headphones blaring. They steal glances, size him up. To them, he's a fresh fish. Boom! The sound is followed by the noise of a bunch of people yelling and screaming, beating on the walls, slamming chairs on the floor. His muscles tense up. He turns quickly toward the direction of the disturbance and confronts a complex of plexiglass partitions. There are about 30 dudes wilding out in a TV room. They're watching an NBA game. The AU walks over to the mahogany-skinned sister in a navy blue corrections uniform. She sits behind a small square table. She is the only CO in the dorm. He hands her his paperwork while checking her name tag. Sergeant Havoc. When she opens her mouth to speak, he notices the 2 gold teeth on either side of her top bridge. "You're in bed 22, she says, and logs him on the head count. "Where that's at?" She raises her head and studies him, cold-eyed. "The numbers are painted on the sides of the beds." The AU looks to his left at the bed closest to the table. He nods and turns to walk off. She calls out, "Hey!" "Yeah, what up?" "The showers close at 9 o'clock. If you go and take one, you need to hurry up," she snaps, her whole vibe vaguely akin to rancor. "I'm cool," he says, distracted. His senses gorge on these new surroundings. At that, he walks toward his bed. Sergeant Havoc watches him with knowing eyes. The AU moves through the dorm with his head up. He notices pockets of 2 or 3 players huddled in different parts of the resting area. None of them are making eye contact. Well, maybe a few of them. Most are leaning in and shoo-shooing with each other. Most of these niggas are cowards, he says to himself. Disdain. He finds out his bed is a little more than a cot. He sits down and places his few things on the floor beside him. A vict, an old convict, walks up and stands in his aisle. Home dude is about 40, 45 with an old-school shag, a salt and pepper beard, and bad teeth. The vict says,
Check this out. The walk orderly ought to have your mattress down before lights out. You need to remind the key man, though. Your boxes probably won't come till the morning, so...
Wait a minute. The AU cuts him off. I didn't ask you nothing. What you want with me?
Well, hold up.
No, you hold up. I don't need your help. Your best bet is to back up off me. The vict got this strained look on his face. He opens his mouth to speak and thinks better of it. He turns and walks away. The AU is fuming. Who do they think he is? He's remembering all of those stories he heard in the Paris jail. Ain't nobody gonna fake me out, he reminds himself. He won't tolerate no games. He bout his business. His blood pressure starts building. That's right. This is the mindset he's more used to. It's time to set it off in this bitch. He jumps up and yells all kinds of shit at the top of his lungs. Dudes filing out of the TV and game rooms look at him like he's crazy. A couple of cats unplug the fan so they can hear what he's yelling about. As the hum of the fans died down, they can hear him better, like a lead guitar shredding through a break in the music. Yeah, that's what I said, and I'll represent that. I ain't looking for no partners. I don't need no friends. Don't mess with mine. I won't mess with yours, understand me? My name is Lil Chris. If anybody got a problem with me, I'm down for whatever, whenever. Remember that. As the ringing of his shouts settles on the air, everybody goes back to what they was doing to begin with. Nah, these cats ain't the gladiators he's painted into the scene. Better look again. Like water, air ain't still. Wind whirls through. The wall-mounted fans start back buzzing. He stands there wide-eyed. The voices, their echo and hum. So many people in one place, but the area is open. His third eye working overtime. It reaches to sense what his muscles can't possibly know. It sees there are things he'll need to peep. This need to know. He'll get the hang of it. In the weeks ahead, he'll learn that while this used to be the bloodiest prison in the nation, all that has changed. The challenge of the penitentiary is more mental than physical now. Most of the savage cats that still ride are boxed away in the cell blocks and extended lockdowns where the conditions are barbaric for real. The dormitory that Lil Chris walked into is part of what is called population. Most of these inmates focus on trying to make it back to the streets, or at the very least, to make their stay here more comfortable, if that's possible. The dominant perspective is that position is everything, and much too important to squander on incidental conflict. Position is always at risk where the administration has rats, squeals, trinkies, informants, or whatever in every corner, and they telling everything, period. Juggling these is a preoccupation in itself. No, he won't receive a direct answer from these quarters. He'll soon grasp this. The prison security scheme is unit management. This has made those subjects to its clutches very, very sly creatures indeed. Very few of the challenges Lil Chris will face in the coming times will he approach head-on. Lil Chris figures out early on that the only place to find solitude, a chance to hear himself think, is on his pillow, beneath his covers. In Shreveport, Louisiana, where he grew up, the weather was often the same numbing, apathetic cold in the winter, a dry cold he inhaled thoughtlessly, that frosted his breath right in front of his face. A stiff cold that held him like a blanket in the still life the city becomes until the scorching hot summers. Even now, he can picture his early years in the Bottom, one of Shreveport's oldest, roughest neighborhoods. His older sister, Michelle, nursed a crush on Oreo. That one's signature bald head, dark skin, and gold teeth. One of the infamous Bottom Boys. Them ones among Shreveport's oldest, most organized street gangs. His beginnings. Him only a few months past his 13th birthday, with that small band of little street kids he started out with. Hot wires and joy rides to pass the idle hours. His mother practically as young as him. Off working, crisscrossing the country with this business that did inventory for large supermarket chains. AccuCount, or something like that. He grew up in his grandparents' house. Big old whatnot shelves crowded with porcelain statuettes, potted plants with running vines, and framed family pictures. Elaborate displays of cherished old china dishes. Always the smell of cooked food. At the best of times, a whiff of homemade fruit preserves kept in thick glass jars with the two-part sealing tops. Loud, boisterous voices. More akin to what you'd hear in wide country fields, yelling back and forth, instead of the close confines of a working-class A-frame set on a hill, sitting on stacked cement cinder blocks. His Baptist grandfather, pious, stalwart. His grandma a stern homemaker, but always with a relieving laugh, a ready smile. She also worked as a janitor for one of the middle schools out in Motown, West Shreveport. Granddaddy always chased some hustle or another. A truck store, selling sweets and pickled pig feet, watermelons or some shit. There was Michelle and his younger sister, Net, along with his Aunt Carrie and her 2 kids, Carlos and Kim. A old-school family, a full house. He among the youngest, running around underfoot trampling Grandma's flower beds. His nest was one of love. From home he gained classic black values and a basic education. And God. Still, he chose the streets. His mom's was a bookworm, but his pop's the ex-con. It was in his blood, and life was real. So there was the streets, the pace, the pulse, the rites of passage, the pressure of it all. Crime. He picked the elements apart without thinking about it. Learned his lessons well and quick. By the time he turned 15, he was something serious, flanked by a different group of youngsters, some older than him, all ready to follow his lead. His confidence was boosted by surviving a short but hard stint in juvenile for weapons possession. Back in his own hood, Lakeside, streets a mixture of black and white, tar-back roads lined by ditches on both sides, paved concrete thoroughways, curbed and sidewalked. Rows of frame houses, almost all fronted by picture windows, low-rate market, mortgaged or rented. Honest, hard workers' dwellings, weeviled by crack houses. Everybody struggling. Some much more than others. The block, peopled by prayers and sinners. Churches and liquor stores switching up on every corner along the avenue. Scented by tree sap, shredded acorns, sprinkled pecans. Discarded liquor bottles and corner store feed bags. Baby diapers. Dog, cat, and chicken shit. Consumer brand smell goods. Cologne and perfumes and sweat. For a kid like him. Running the back alleys, gullies, packed dirt trails, and railroad tracks around that grid, life was so free that even pain didn't cost much, and trouble ain't seemed so bad. There was plenty of it, too. Coming of age, he ran the gamut. Fist fights on the ball courts and gravel lots, dice games in abandoned garages and under carports, sneaking girls in his grandparents' back door, front yard brawls, family, friends, and old folks yelling for them to break it up and get your tails home. Guns, crack rock. As he came up in it, he seized every opportunity. Religious about his respect, no qualms. Blasted on all enemies from another hood or the next street over. More times than he could count. Couldn't even tell you how many he actually hit. For the most part, he was good with it. A long way from when he used to sleep curled up with a Bible. There was something rewarding about squeezing the trigger, making off with stolen goods, a fat blunt or a fat ass. His bad deeds never froze him in the moment, just later, when he had to face their sad, red, crying eyes, when confronted by his own conscience after dark in the quiet of his thoughts, or when forced to offer up an explanation. Guilty as charged, he thinks to himself as he lies there on his narrow prison cot. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he always knew prison or death awaited him. Far from cringing, he embraced those probabilities as nothing so much as gangster shit. His issue, as far back as he can remember. The black sheep probably would have chosen death at some points along the way, even by his own hands. But he lives. Survived it all. And for what? The penitentiary? Yeah, he knew what would come. Just didn't know it would feel like this. July 11th, a few weeks short of his 19th birthday, he left the streets. First-degree murder. Now sentenced to life imprisonment. He knows he got to do something. Sure that he'll figure it out. Eventually. Till then, he'll be thinking. And holding his shit down. Lil Chris wakes up. It's deathly still in the dorm. Only the fans are humming. All the lights are out except for the dim blue lights that illuminate key spots in the living area. The toilets and showers, the TV and game rooms, the telephone and microwave station. All a little bit brighter than the low-lit sleeping area. Outside of snoring and the occasional fart, everybody quiet. Lil Chris turns his head at the sound of jingling keys. It's Sergeant Havoc making her rounds. For the first time, he really peeps her out. She's maybe 5'6", small waistline, maybe 120 pounds, legs like a stallion, nice apple bottom, extravagantly manicured nails, and ghetto fabulous hair. A walk like a fashion model. She passes right in front of him. She keeps her eyes trained ahead, faking like she don't see him checking her out. His head's spinning. Damn. Where's that notepad at? Lil Chris rolls over to grab his pen and paper. He begins to write the first thing that comes to his mind, then scratches it out. He reaches for his pack of tobacco and rolls a cigarette, lights it and takes a drag. He starts to write again as he blows smoke. Long and strong, take a pull, nicotine into my brain, full, I'm a mask, prosecution heavy, mind on my task, contemplating, to hell with the past, hear me? I'ma make the world take heed, recognize player, it's Lil Chris, keyed on a master plan, penitentiary got me thinking, ranking every goal while getting swole, I'm an orchestrator, stay with my mind on my biz, making sure niggas know what time it is. Chapter 2. Metamorphosis, transmutation, my principle of transition, jewel scarab, Egyptian dung beetle, transcended from humble beginnings, a lowly living bred majestic mature, I was born under the sign of the twin. Mistress Cleo prophesied my rise, in a hip-hop magazine. Anubis wepwawet, open up my way, it's the dawn of my coming forth by day. He watches. 15 or so of them walk through the door. They seem to get younger and younger every trip. Even the most generous estimate of how many of them will ever leave this place alive is 1 or 2, 3 tops. Still, he watches. Studying them is an art, a little something he's picked up along the way. Rise can push his boxes off the welded metal pushcarts used to transport footlockers along the concrete floor, in a dormitory of 64 men and a CO, and within 30 minutes he'll have assessed every one of them's makeup. He'll know who's dangerous and who's soft, who's got sense and who can't think, who's playing games and who wants to be left alone. And most importantly, which of these fools he's willing to allow inside his zone. Of the group of AUs he's watching at this moment, a couple are repeat offenders. They'll go down the walk and blend right on back in. The worst of these will keep the homies they haven't seen in 2 or 3 years up all night, jabbering about how they were out there doing it, thugging it up, while those that never left held grudges against them for throwing away the one thing that all of them craved the most, another chance. The rest of these fresh fish are the disoriented, the upstanding citizen who slipped, crossed the line and got caught up, the big-timers who thought the world was theirs, the drug addicts who forgot about the world. Worst of all, the children of the ghetto. Few of them even had a clue. All of them think that they'll be home in 3 to 5, but the truth is now they've been added to the count. 85% of them are predicted to die here in the joint. So last night was most of y'all's first night in a prison car, huh? If you were like me, you didn't sleep much. I bet you I can tell you what your first waking thought was this morning. Rise surveys the room, makes occasional eye contact. Yeah, I know what you were thinking. Damn. By now you have been poked, turned, pinched, questioned, instructed, laid in, rolled out, shaved down, and locked up. It's all part of the process. You've been lodged into the system. I'm sure the sheer reality hasn't even hit most of you yet. You're in shock, and you don't even know it. You haven't had time to think about it, have you? Too many other things to take in, right? Rise walks among their chairs. A slow, steady gait, almost a strut. Not that he has anything to strut about. His disposition is one of awareness. Here, lately, no situation can overwhelm him. He's got time under his belt. He's in tune with this environment. Still, he chooses his next words carefully. This particular session is called orientation. The administration has set it up so that you can be, well, I'll say, so we can basically give you all a rundown on what you've gotten yourselves into. He's trying to reach them. You are sitting in the Louisiana State Prison at Angola. My name is Ashuan R. Hamilton. Most of the brothers here know me as Rise. If any of you need to get at me, that's who you ask for, Rise. Now, we're going to try to move through our respective spiels, and it would be wise of you to pay attention. There are some of choices you'll need to make.
You need to make a conscious decision on how you are going to walk this joint. There are a lot of pitfalls. Most of you, for whatever reason, will go down the walk and get with your homeboys. I know, you ain't scared.
Rise looks at the clean-shaven 16-year-old in the back row.
But don't be surprised if your homies are the main ones to try to play you. You need to focus on establishing your own individuality. Set your own feet. Validate yourself. Mostly, it's not what you do that these cats respect. It's what you don't.
Rise walks back up to the podium and looks over the room one more time.
I'll be back a little later to talk to you about education. For now, though, we have a number of people here to help break down what's going to be your Angola experience.
Rise signals for Reverend Andrews to come up and speak. A tall, slim, somewhat funny-built man around 50, Reverend Andrews is one of the more prominent preachers among a considerable number of inmate ministers that walk the compound. He stands in, shakes Rise's hand, and gives him an embrace, shoulder to shoulder. Rise heads for the back of the room, his attention already turned away from what's going on up front, living in his head again. Prison will do that to you. One never gets the chance to recover from the many isolated tragedies that riddle the life of the prisoner. So they walk, striving to stay engaged. Soldiers with open wounds determined to hold their position on a board. Not so much ignoring, but rather absorbing. Learning to live with the pain, always thinking 5 moves ahead. Always moving forward, always progressive, always feeling that even in the midst of a crowd, one is always alone. The cell was dark. In the distance, Rise can hear the jingling of keys and echoes of laughter. How can they be happy? How can joy exist in a world that has brought him so much pain? He's a go-getter, though. All his life he has had to fight opposition. But those agents were always on the outside, out there where Rise could see them, where he could attack them. But now, they're setting it off inside of him. His instincts are sharp. His defenses are up. Who are they? Where's the heat coming from? He can't simply identify his target and swing it out. But the presence is there. He can feel it. All he can do is lie there and suffer. And then there is this bird, a sparrow.
Man, you see that little dude in the back row? Kid, that's a pretty little old dude, ain't he? Ain't a man. Rise!
A foppish convict, leaning over the serving counter, Rise is blindly withdrawn to.
Huh?
Rise stirs absently.
Rise!
What?
You don't hear me?
What, Buff? What you want?
Rise finally focuses, irritated.
I'm talking about that little boy in the back.
What? What about him? Rise zeroes in with mounting menace.
No, I was just saying.
Saying what? Rise gives the room a quick once-over from the vantage of the counter to see who's seeing.
Say, come round here right quick, Puff.
Puff follows Rise around the counter and back into the shed's food preparation room.
Right over here, man. Come here,
Rise says in a calm, nonchalant voice. As Puff comes within an arm's reach, Rise steps into his shirt and backhands him, bows him in his left rib, and hems him in against one of the refrigeration units. Puff's breathing gets hoarse, ragged, eyes bucked wide open. Oh, now he understands. Yeah, he got sense now.
Don't ever come at me like that. You know not to bring that to me.
Man.
It looks almost as if there is a shadow of a frown on Puff's face. Rise moves his grip up from his shirt to his neck. He squeezes. Puff squirms, gags, trying to get a breath. He tries to push Rise off, but to no avail. Puff's pulse pushes insistently under Rise's thumb.
What?
Rise growls.
You got a problem with something I said? Huh? What?
Rise leans in and gets right into Puff's ear to keep the disturbance contained as he delivers his next statement, vaguely aware of someone or another addressing the gathering of AUs from the podium out front.
I know you ain't forgot I was the one you hit up under a while back when you decided you wanted to change your life. I was the one that backed the wolves up off you when your ex-old man wasn't trying to hear that, too, wasn't I? And now you won't come to me like you trying to turn something out? Wreck someone else's life? And you already know I don't respect that foolishness. Now, I would be down bad if I was to give that little brother a black diamond and tell him to handle his business, wouldn't I?
But Rise,
Hold that down and step off.
Rise shoves Puff toward the door. He stumbles over a footstool on his way out.
Go get yourself together, boy.
As Rise's breathing subsides, they call for him over the PA system.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?